Hi, I'm Wing Commander Santosh Kumar Yadav, known as Sky, and I was posted in 41 Squadron, Delhi in 2004, and then I was a flight lieutenant, and I was on a detachment at Bar in the December of 2004, where we experienced the tsunami, barely survived, saved a few lives. And I'm going to tell you about my experience of the tsunami. So the previous night was Christmas. We were all happy and high, and we had a good sleep that night. The next day morning, all hell broke loose. So 6 o'clock in the morning when I got up and I was in my washroom, the bulb started dangling and I felt I was getting out of a hangover, it seemed like. And I was wondering why it's been so long not drinking nothing and why is it happening to me. And then suddenly furniture started moving, jumping, doors started banging, and what I faced was the worst earthquake maybe of the century, or I don't know, the worst ever, 9 decimal something. And it was really difficult to stand straight, and with a lot of difficulty I got out of my building. And when I got out, it felt as if I was on a rocking boat in the middle of ocean, and maybe under a hurricane sort of or a cyclone. It was that bad. The overhead tanks were splashing water left and right, and we were swinging. The poles were all jumping up and wires dangling, and I got so, I just sat down out of the building, and this continued for about 3 to 4 minutes, and after that there was complete silence. It was nice to see nothing, no damage at all, and all the buildings were intact. People were out of their houses. We all felt good that we all okay. And then suddenly, say about 10 or 15 minutes after that, the first wave came in, and the water was really shallow, just about knee height or lower than that. And we were all like wondering what's happening, why the seawater coming down into the island here. So we had no clue. We just guessing. Some of the families were really scared, and they took the right decision of getting out of their houses and moving towards higher land away from the sea. And we stayed back just to have a look at what was happening. We went back to our rooms, got our phones out, but the phones were not working. And we were just at a junction looking at what happened. And the second wave which came lifted up cars. You could never imagine cars floating on water. We saw cars being not jacked up, but lifted up and moving with the seawater. And then things stabilized. It was okay. There was, say, chest deep water, stable, as if things were okay. It was done. This had to happen, and now it had settled down. So we decided to get the families out of their houses and pull people out and help them. So we started moving into the waters, me and one of my friends. We decided to walk down through the water and help people. So when we reached closer to the houses, what we saw was all the houses on the ground floor were already flooded, so people had moved up to the first floor. And it was all crazy atmosphere, so we whistled them out. They looked at us. They said, "Why are you into the water?" We were like, "We got to get you out of it." They said, "No, you go, we are all okay." And then suddenly they started howling at us, "Get out, get out." And we were like, what get out where? We were already in deep waters. And then we saw a huge wave, and our heads were up like this. And nowhere to go in the middle of water. And so we just, the other friend said, just hold on to the tree next to the road. So I don't know how we managed to hold on to the tree, but the water was over our heads for whatever few seconds, or 30 odd seconds we could hold on to our breath. We stayed under the water, and then there was a barbed fence right behind us, and the fear was if we leave the tree, we go right into the fence and we're done. But we held our breath for whatever while, and then we had to get out of that. We leave the tree and pull ourselves out, and we came out. I was above the trees, floating in muck, debris, cars, barrels, and all shit. I got a hold of one of the coconut trees and stayed there for a while. I looked for my other friend, but he was nowhere to be seen. And I don't remember exactly how much time, but maybe a few minutes I was there holding on to the tree, and I see another wave coming up. Oh my God, it was crazy. And I pulled myself up, trying to get on, climb up that, move up that tree as much as possible, but and I had to leave that tree to come out of the water to breathe. And thankfully at that moment of time, the water was pushing everything inland. So I got to higher grounds, and then I pulled my full energy, swam really hard to get out of those waters. But whatever I used to hold on, the speed was so fast that everything used to come into my hand and I was being drained in. But thankfully the water had slowed down when it hit the higher grounds, and so I just barely managed to get out of it. When I turned around and looked back, I could just see the rooftops of the double-storied buildings there. And I called out for my friend. He was nowhere to be seen. So I turned back, came to the tarmac, and there I saw craziness. Everybody with life jackets, dinghies were pulled out. It was a great shocker, and we didn't know how to survive that. So people were going crazy. So one of my helicopter pilot friends, he was starting up a helicopter, though I told him, if you don't have a co-pilot, I'll be with you. So he said, so as soon as we were starting the helicopters, just before we started, the water came in over the tarmac. So we got out of the helicopter. Our aircraft was a little bit away, so we cleared up our aircraft, started our engines, went on the runway. When we went on the runway, we saw half the runway was underwater, and there were huge barrels of oil tankers, storage tankers, just floating across the runways. And I don't know, we didn't know what to do. The fuel we had was just minimum to go within the islands, not anywhere else. So at that moment, I used my HF set to call up Chennai and Port Blair. The Port Blair were not responding. We thought Port Blair must be underwater. What was happening here? But Chennai responded. We called up Chennai and made a Mayday call, saying that we had faced an earthquake and there was flooding of the islands, and we were losing lives and we needed relief and rescue. And so by 6:30, this was there with Chennai, and one of the Jet Airways guys, he relayed the message to Delhi. So the country were aware of the tsunami. But the only bad thing about this situation was neither was I aware about the tsunami thing. Now the guys who got the messages in Chennai or Delhi knew about anything about tsunami. This was something new for India. So what I want to say here is that we had relayed the message to Chennai. Everybody was aware. And this tsunami took 1.5 hours traveling at jet speed to hit the eastern coast of India and Sri Lanka. So we had information, we could have used it to save thousands of lives that we lost along the eastern coast. But despite our message being there, but lack of knowledge, we can say, this didn't help any one of us. So we were on the tarmac. Port Blair came up, they told us nothing is available. So we came out of our aircraft and we left the aircraft on the runway itself. And when we came back, that was when we got the shock. A young man was holding a young boy on in his arms and thumping him to get him back to life. And then we realized, oh my God, we're losing lives here. So we went back into the waters, pulled people out. There were so many bodies all around. Buildings were damaged. They just wiped out from the ground. All remained was the ground floor tiling. You could see this was the rooms where the rest of the buildings were just wiped away. That was the power of the nature. We could never imagine that nature is so mighty, but nature really powerful. We think our big buildings and cement constructions are safe and can save us, but nature is really, really powerful. And so we pulled out whoever we were live people we had, and then the water started receding back into the seas, and it was pulling away everything back into the ocean. So whatever bodies we could save, we tied them with cables, whatever was available, and it was madness there, seeing so many people dead and destroyed. All that was left of Karnik was runway, which was pretty much damaged because of cracks of the earthquake. So we chucked up all the debris so that we could have a clear runway. And by afternoon, we got a message that Port Blair was okay. So the first set of casualties that we had, people with injuries and people with lungs full of seawater. So we flew out the first casualties in the afternoon that day, dropped them at Port Blair, and got back some water and eats that we get from Port Blair. And we continued to fly this evacuation missions to Port Blair with casualties till late in the night that day. And then we had Inter 2s joining us from the southern bases in mainland that evening. So that night we stayed back at Port Blair, and we made calls to all those families that had survived, informing that the families were okay in Car Nicobar. And then we had talks with Air Headquarters to send in the best possible aircrafts to pull out people who had survived there and get in rescue and relief material. So the second day we got back to Car Nicobar, and now since we had a lot of big planes coming in, we pushed our little Dornier in the corner, and we got down onto the tarmac management. The crowd was crazy. People wanted to just get out of those islands as soon as possible. It was very difficult to control people, and actually they were really scared, and what they had seen and what had happened in the island had made such impression in their minds that they actually wanted to get out of that place. So the Air Force was wonderful. They came in with their machines that landed one after another in Car Nicobar, and they picked up people to Port Blair and to mainland, getting them home and getting the medical relief and whatever was required there. And I would like to especially thank the people of India who sent in clothes, eatables, because we were down to nothing. Everything was washed away. In fact, what I flew was in that night suits of a little t-shirt and a short. So I was flying those missions in that. It was the people who sent in clothes from the mainland or wherever. So we got to wear some kurtas, and thanks to the Navy, we had some overalls sent in. So that was our clothes. And we were all living in the open for next 5-6 days, helping out people, the islanders who had suffered major injuries. Legs broken, skulls cracked. I saw so much of death and destruction there. It was madness, but the human spirit is good. We all came out of that. People lost their kins, but we moved on. One wonderful thing I want to mention here is what the Karnik Aboriginal people have are called Hulchu huts. They have houses which are built on stilts and built of basically wood and rocks. What I realized was if the people had been living in those houses, they would have survived for sure, because the water would have washed away the stilts, but the huts would have floated and there would have been no damage at all. But we humans thought concrete is better. We want to build solid houses, and we are leaving away the knowledge that our ancestors gave us, and we are moving on to more modern things. But we should realize what our ancestors did and what they had built, something great and of great utility and a lifesaver. Because we had seen a lot of death, destruction, save people, and worked really hard for whatever the 4-5 days we spent there. So the Air Force pulled us out of there knowing that we had survived a disaster, and put in a new set of people to continue the operations there. And I got back home probably before the New Year Eve. Thanks to the Air Force and the people of India, they recognized my courage that I showed on saving lives and then flying missions without consideration of my own comfort and safety. I was awarded the Vayu Sena Medal Gallantry in 15th August 2005. So that's my story. I hope you derive inspiration from that. My advice is that you should keep your heads cool and show courage, determination, and help your brethren whenever in danger.
That's a wrap on season 1 of Speak Out Loud. We'll be back very soon with more amazing stories from amazing people. And if you have a story to share, if you yourself want to speak out loud, then reach out to us on Instagram. Don't forget to hit that like button, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.